Hi everyone, this is Grace, and today I'm going to walk you through how I make a batch of cookies from mixing the dough to baking. Now, this is what works for me right now. I am still tweaking my recipe and learning new and better ways to bake, so check back often for any additional or new notes in the description. Let's get started. First off, I always set my ingredients out before I mix them all together so they're ready to go. The first step that I'm doing here is adding my softened butter to the bowl of my stand mixer. I do have a KitchenAid Professional Series 6 quart, which is a little bit bigger than the standard at-home mixer. I think the standard is 5 quart. So I am doing a double batch here, just FYI, just because my mixer handles a double batch better, but the description of the video will be just a one single batch recipe. So I like to cream my butter a little bit first before I add in the sugar. I do use room temperature butter and eggs, but I tend it on the colder side of that. I just have better luck, I feel like. If it gets too warm, too soft, it doesn't work all that well. So I like to just give it a little bit of a whip up before I add the sugar. Just, I don't know, to get it started. It works for me. Maybe this is not what you're supposed to do, but it works for me. So I whip up that butter just a little bit so it lightens already. That's what you're going for, is you do want to whip the butter to incorporate some air into it, make it fluffy, and as that happens, it will go from however yellow your butter is to like a little bit less yellow. So here I am now just adding that sugar in. You know, I didn't whip up that butter to begin with for very long, but now I'm going to put this on low, just because if you put it on high too soon, you're going to get sugar everywhere. And I was like, oops, I think I did put it on too high to begin with. I went straight from stirring to probably medium high, but this is more like a medium right here. And just whipping that up. It's probably a little hard to tell with this camera, the color change, but you are looking for the butter and the sugar to cream together, to incorporate air, get fluffy. It will, like I said, turn a little bit of a lighter color. Sometimes it's a more drastic change than others. Just whipping this up. And I don't know if I said this already, I will be using a paddle attachment for this whole video. And I did leave intentionally the speed in the frame of the video. So if you want to be monitoring that during this, you're welcome to. I'll give my best marker on whether it's stir, slow, medium, high. I do have a spatula on hand always when baking, so that I can scrape down the bowl many times. Especially having a larger bowl here, I do feel like I need to scrape down maybe a lot more than others need to. I love my stand mixer so much. I actually have never made dough with a hand mixer. That's not that you can't. Next up, I am adding my eggs, which again are on the colder side of room temperature. It's what I like. I'm adding my vanilla bean paste here, which is the one ingredient that I splurge on in my cookie recipe. I really think it makes a difference. It visually makes a difference as well when you use vanilla bean paste versus just straight vanilla. I've scraped down that bowl with the creamed butter and sugar. And now I'm going to be incorporating the eggs and the vanilla into the butter and sugar. First, just incorporate it. And then once you get it incorporated, then increase the speed like I've done here. And beat it until it becomes lighter and fluffier again. So here we go, just upping that speed a little bit more. I do find it's really important to make it incorporated first, so it's this really viscous texture. Scraping down that bowl again. It's important too to not overmix. I think at this point I've definitely overmixed where it starts to separate. It goes from incorporated to separated. Whoops, don't do that. So I did that little scrape just to make sure I was getting everything good together, but not over mixing it at the same time. So at this stage, you're just finishing up the wet batter part of this. You want to make sure it is well combined, well incorporated, and there is some air in it. So in a moment, yep, I will finish this up. And I do have this little flour guard thingamajiggy that I got with my mixer, or maybe it's a separate part. And I'm putting it at kind of an odd angle right now just so you can see it on camera. I don't normally put it at this angle. I really struggled. So this is my flour mixture. I personally do not sift my flour mixture. That's just my personal experience. Seems to be fine. I do have it in a bowl all ready to go on the side. I have flour, salt, and cornstarch. So that is kind of my secret to my newest recipe, is adding cornstarch. That to me is really what is going to give it the crisp edges. So some people will add all the flour mixture at the same time, and some people will add it in stages. Sometimes I do both, and I honestly don't know which one is necessarily better, but I do know that you want to make sure you do not over mix your dough. So that's probably why people will tend towards putting all the flour mixture in at the beginning and then mixing it up. I tend to add maybe half of it, and then as it's mixing, I will add the rest of the flour, which you see me doing right now. And I always put it on stir, the lowest setting to start, because otherwise you're going to get flour everywhere, even with that guard there. And again, the name of the game is to incorporate everything at this stage and not over mix it. In this point here, whoops, I turned it up too high. I definitely regretted that. I'm going to turn it up to medium just to make sure it's all incorporated. And you know that it's done. You can see where the dough starts to clump on the paddle and pulls away from the edge of the bowl. So now we're going to actually start to roll this out. Now, I don't typically chill my dough. That's one great thing. When the dough is done, you should be able to stick your finger in it and it's not going to stick to you. But if your butter and or eggs were a bit too warm, and maybe the environment that you're in is too warm, you may need to chill your dough for 30 minutes to an hour, maybe even more in the fridge. What I'm sprinkling on here is actually powdered sugar. Most people use flour. This is going to help things not stick. I personally just prefer powdered sugar. When I use flour, I feel like I always add too much flour, and it really changes the consistency of my dough, because I am team no dough left behind. I roll out all of my dough. I don't leave any behind. I have this basic wooden rolling pin here, which is my favorite. I will link this in the description. I use dough guides, which I will also link. I roll out, and I don't know if I'll regret saying this and change it later, but I roll out to 5/16 of an inch, which I've experimented with 1/4 of an inch and 3/8, which is right above 5/16, and I find that 5/16, I know it's the perfect 1/4 of an inch too thin, 3/8 too thick. And here I roll it out on parchment paper. Now I normally cut out the entire piece of dough, but this was just for demonstration purposes. I also normally start at the bottom of my dough, not at the center here, but again, demonstration purposes. So this is a little awkward to do it this way. I was honestly saving the rest of my dough to use for something else. But this is why I like to use parchment paper, because you can just peel it off very easily. Straight from the parchment paper, I'm putting it straight on my pan after this. And this is where it's really important to have kind of dough on the cooler side, because if it's too warm, this stage is going to be really hard to do. And I've been there, done that. I don't have air conditioning in my kitchen. So that's why I like to use my ingredients on the cooler side. And again, if you're starting from the bottom, this will be easier. So there are my beautiful pans with my perforated mats. I will also link these. This is new to me. These perforated mats are a game changer. My cookies bake way more evenly than they ever have, and they spread way less than they ever have. I love them so much. My dear friend sells them. And here I'm just showing you, these are the baked cookies. I'll put in the description how long to bake for. Really, friends, it's going to depend on your oven, your environment, but check the description. Now here, There is a little bit of more of a golden color on one side, so my oven does not bake evenly. It really struggles. So this for me is actually quite an even bake, believe it or not. I think these mats help so much. And there we go. That is how I make my cookies. I hope you learned a thing or two. If you have any questions, drop them in the comments, and always check back to see if anything in the description has changed. Thanks everyone. Have a sweet one.